Good everybody. This is Pierre Ferrari, President and CEO of Heifer International, and I am absolutely, totally delighted to be able to introduce you to Ertharin Cousin, who is one of our board members and someone I worked with when she was at World Food Program, and she has a experience and a resume that most of us wish we had. So she and I will have a conversation about what's going on right now on the virus and the impact on food security, food stability, nutrition, etc. She is incredibly well equipped to give us a little insight on the work that we do. Heifer International is committed to ending poverty and hunger, and I'll let Ertharin go and describe what's going on right now, and then we have a discussion about what could we do, we as Heifer, we as a community, we as a society, global society. So Ertharin, good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me here today. This is a challenging time. We are all suffering from the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. But what we're recognizing is that this pandemic, the health pandemic, has evolved into a food crisis for vulnerable people around the world. And so what it's done is it's illuminated the food challenges that so many of our fellow citizens deal with, both here in the United States and around the world. But it's also exacerbated those challenges for many who were working before the crisis, but because of the mitigating responsibilities of addressing the challenges, particularly the lockdowns, it has resulted in those who had income were spending a disproportionate amount of that income for food, now not having the ability to put food on the table for their family. We're also seeing effects on food systems because many who work in the agriculture space don't have access, particularly in developing countries, to markets that would allow them to sell that food. Many in the urban areas can't access markets to purchase the food that is necessary. We see some governments now distributing food, but even in those situations, we've seen detrimental consequences to the affected population who can't get the food they need to feed their children when they are working to try and also ensure that their children are not, the health of their children and their families and themselves is not impacted by the virus. So this is a time when just addressing the health consequences is not enough. We also need to simultaneously address the impact of those of this virus and the economic impact of the cure of the cure for the virus, the mitigation strategies that we put into place, how we need to address how those mitigation strategies are now affecting the most vulnerable in all of our communities and their ability to access food.
You know, I was just thinking about some of the projects where some of the farmers who are actually able to work, they say, I can't get feed for the animals. I can't get the pharmaceutical necessary to keep my animals healthy. You know, we've talked about the complex global value chain or supply chains, whether you're in automobile or pharmaceuticals, it actually affects our smallholder farmers.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And so the biggest lacuna we have right now is how does, and it's produce, that the farmer is actually productive, but how do we actually get their goods to market? You know, it is an astonishing kind of system failure, global system failure. How do you feel about, so, you know, the food system worldwide, it varies tremendously by size and concentration of industries and all that. So there is this whole debate going on, or I'm hearing sort of a side debate on the sort of shoemaker, small is beautiful, you know, the ability for small systems to be more resilient than large systems. Where'd you go on that?
Well, let me unpack a little of the first part of the question that you, and that's on small farmers and their lack of access to market. And the effect that that has on their livelihoods, both now and for the long term.
Yeah.
What we're experiencing are farmers don't have, for the most part, bank accounts. They don't have savings.
Yeah.
What they earn is what they use to support their livelihoods, to feed their families. So if farmers can't access market, they can't feed their livestock. And if they can't feed their livestock, that affects the morbidity of that livestock, and then the long-term livelihood of that farmer and his family. And that gets to the last part of your question. We talk about a global food systems, and we have long food systems, as well as short food systems, local food systems, and the global long food systems have an impact in the export bans or the potential for export bans or policies that affect the export food from next countries into net importing countries. We saw this in 2007 and 8 as well, at a much greater degree than what we're seeing, thankfully, now. But we do know that the lockdown in India has affected the transport to the ports in India and the movement of particularly rice from India to net importing countries like Senegal, and their access to those commodities, and as a result, increase the cost of those commodities for populations. And so what many agricultural development experts are suggesting now is that this is an opportunity for us to invest in local supply chains, shorter supply chains, of supporting those small holders and providing the access that they need to markets. But the reality is, supporting a supply chain, we don't have a problem with labor in the supply chains, as you noted, in the care for the livestock or in the work in fields. What the challenge is in access to markets. When borders are closed, or markets are closed, or hours are limited on markets, and when populations don't have access to capital to purchase the products in those markets, even if the markets are open, you have a short-term problem with a potential longer-term impact. And so what we need to do is ensure that that the systems are created to support the distancing that is necessary for markets to operate. Mm-hmm. And it can work. We've managed to do it in our grocery stores here in our country, here in the United States, where we maintain 6 feet distance from the next shopper. We wear masks when we shop. The clerks wear masks. We can do those same types of social distancing, physical distancing activities that mitigate the spread of the disease, but also provide an opportunity for farmers to have the access to the markets that they need, while simultaneously providing the consumers with the access to the food that they require.
Mm. Yeah, I was just thinking about our smallholder farmer, as you well know, that's the community with which we work all over the world, and access to markets is, you can have a very short market value chain or supply chain, where literally the farmer walks down to the market with chickens or vegetables and sells it. But the problem is much bigger than that. How do you actually and we're using co-ops and those kind of intermediary systems to actually aggregate and ship. Mm-hmm. The development organizations have depended a great deal on donations and philanthropy and everything else. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the use of capital, so that the systems, we invest in actual systems like storage and cold chain, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a way to actually create potentially small, short, I love the word, short chain systems that are efficient?
can I just say how delighted I am by that question? Because the issues related to the logistical value chain, the logistics of any value chain, particularly the cold storage, transport, the data uh, between farmers, co-ops, and markets. We have, as a community, and Heifer's been in leadership in much of this work, have talked about the need for investment in all of these areas for decades. We've made some small improvements. This is an opportunity for us in to support those value chains, to support the food system, to scale up what we know is required to make those systems more resilient. The communications, the cold storage, the transport, as well as the access to regular access, viable, dependable markets. So none of the solutions for addressing this challenge are new. But what we have an opportunity to do with the attention that these issues are now receiving from the international donor community is to identify those solutions for them, and access the capital that is necessary to make those investments and those changes, and come out of, recover from COVID-19 better as a global as well as local food system than we were
Yeah, I think, you know, given the relationships that you have and the connections that you have, I think you're being very encouraging that we as an organization need to go out and be perhaps more aggressive in establishing this very point that we've made. We need resources with which to help the local systems construct more resilient system. And we'll do that. I think we'll do that. This is an opportunity in a way to actually build systems that we should have been building the past few decades. So we'll continue this conversation for sure about that. Because, you know, we were out there trying to find some of our farmers said, I've got all these goods, but I don't. My regular transporter is sick or has been told to not come. And if I had a truck, I would take this to market myself. That's very small stuff, but you multiply that a few thousand times, and it makes a difference.
Well, it makes a difference, and that small stuff makes a difference.
It makes a difference.
And of all food that is provided comes from smallholder farmers.
Yeah.
So addressing these challenges that smallholder farmers are confronting, and using this attention that is now we now see from the international community on these issues, we should begin to say, here's the answers, not just for today, because this as we're solving a problem that is a COVID-19 problem. Food insecurity, the challenges in agricultural value chains, particularly those chains in those systems and those value chains in the developing world, have been the work of people like you and I for decades. And what we're now witnessing is a global community that is talking about what we in our conversations have shared amongst ourselves of what was necessary to move forward. But I don't want to sound too Pollyannish about this. that as FAO, the president of FAO recently said, COVID-19 is a crisis in a crisis, that there was already a food crisis.
Yeah.
that whether you're talking about the locust in East Africa, the challenges in the Sahel, the ongoing challenges in the Sahel, or the economic challenges in a place like Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Or the challenges that you see in parts of East Asia. What COVID-19, what the economic challenges of COVID-19 are now creating is the most vulnerable people, whether we're talking about rural smallholder farmers, or we're talking about urban populations that depend upon the informal markets for their economic stability, that they are now on top of, in addition to all the issues that I've just expressed, they are now witnessing additional issues. And so we need to deal with the immediate nature of those issues that they're facing. But the point that I am making is, let's ensure that the answers that we invest in as global and local actors are answers that allow us to leapfrog the challenges that we were facing before, to build back better the systems that will ensure that these communities are more resilient in the future.
Yeah. This crisis within a crisis is something that we are confronting now. And at the same time, we as an organization, and I wonder what your opinion of is, there is a humanitarian crisis, literally an urgent, people are going to be starving. And we don't have the resources to really do what the World Food Program does and other people. But I'm wondering, we're debating and we're sort of looking at what the opportunities are for us to engage with the farming community to provide the food that is needed. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but maybe not.
On the spot, and I appreciate it. And when I talk about meeting immediate needs, you're absolutely right. That's the humanitarian response.
Right.
But we always talk. We always, I will use that word. We always talk about the humanitarian and development work together in implementing responses. Too often it's just talk. We perform the humanitarian work, and we perform the development work, and nary the two shall meet. What the opportunity we have now is to make that conversation a reality. For example, in Rwanda, we have been talking to the Minister of Agriculture about the very nascent egg industry in Rwanda. And you have small producers, as well as one large commercial producer without a market now. The hotels are closed, the restaurants are closed, the borders closed, and so you have producers with much inventory. The government is providing baskets to the 150,000 most vulnerable, primarily right now, urban households. And so now purchasing eggs from those farmers to include in that basket will provide the humanitarian response necessary for the government to meet and the community to meet the immediate food needs of families otherwise go hungry, but also the business continuity that is necessary for those producers to ensure their ability to continue to maintain their layers. And so what you're doing is supporting the development activity and building that resilience while you're also addressing the humanitarian challenges. Those are the types of solutions that are required to ensure that when we talk about Build Back Better coming out of this, on the other side of this crisis, in a stronger, more scaled, more resilient position, those are the types of solutions that—
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant solution.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking about the project we have, as you know, in Mexico, where we have layers and we're producing a large number of eggs. But and I'm wondering how they're doing actually. Now I'm going to right after this, I'm going to make a call to find out. I hadn't thought, because I hadn't thought about it. Yeah, that's a good solution. All right. I think we're coming to the end of our time. I promised 20 minutes. Actually, we've exceeded by 1 minute. God forbid. I know we could continue talking about this enormous problem, but I promised 20 minutes, both listeners and to you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you, Ertharin, for what is. Thank you very much for provoking several thoughts that now I need to take action on, which is your role, right? Which is your role.
I'm always happy to do it. But more,
I know.
When we can work together to develop the solutions that will ensure that farmers become more resilient.
Yeah.
And have the ability to provide for their families, and also that we're meeting the food security needs of the most vulnerable. It's a win all around. So
win all around. That's the thing. That's the connection I think we have to make more explicitly in our thinking and our approaches. Good. We will do that.
Terrific.
See you soon. Well, I'll see you on Zoom soon.
See you
Take
on
care.
Zoom soon.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
be well, and please be well. Wash your hands, etc., etc.
Physical distance.
Physical distance alone. Yeah. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.